effort. And so thank you for joining us. Just to get started, today our goals are pretty much, we're going to recap our last meeting, talk through some collateral that Michelle has put together for us that reflects the feedback we got on the last meeting. Talk through just making sure we all are on the same page about our desired outcomes, what types of assets we're hoping for, and then a distribution plan. So to get started, I think it would be great, since we have a lot of people on the phone and in here, just to go around quickly, say your name, organization, and one unique fact about yourself. So I'm Maddie. I'm from the American Heart Association, and I love mountaineering.
My name is Andrew. I'm from Trailhead, and I'm from Minnesota.
Cool.
Good morning, I'm Alexis. I'm with the Colorado Health Foundation, and I'm a fourth-generation Denverite.
Cool.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam, and I'm a BDT, and I'm a bike commuter. My name is Sarah, and I work for 100 Free Colorado. And my birth certificate said Violet Eyes, and I'm really bummed I didn't get to keep those.
Oh, so cool.
Sarah Lipowitz, Colorado Center on Law and Policy, and in my spare time I do free work.
I'm Tawana Henderson with Beyond the Classroom, and I performed in Vegas.
Wow.
Stories.
Yeah.
Ellie Agar with Free Colorado, and I grew up on a farm in Ohio.
Brett Reeder with 100 Free Colorado. I have two cats named Winston and Henry.
Hi everyone, I'm Max with CDHS, and I used to be in rodeo. Racing.
I'm Erin Ulrich with Blueprint to End Hunger, and I used to play professional soccer in Haiti.
I'm Angela Cortez with the AARP, and I had a dog for 17 years, and now I am looking to get another one. I'm finally ready to get another one. Love dogs.
I'm Michelle Ames, and I have an absolute desire for all of you to stay afterwards so I can ask you questions about your stories.
That's fascinating.
Because I used to be a journalist. How's that?
Yeah, same here.
On the phone? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm Kevin Warner.
Yeah,
I'm a Trailhead Institute, and I was a Peace Corps volunteer, so I lived in Costa Rica for 2 years. And yeah, do you want to run the phone?
Oh, sure. Joanne? Do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Joanne Hine with Mesa County. I'm a supervisor at Food Assistance, and I was born and raised in Pennsylvania.
Sherry?
Well, good morning. I'm Sherry Price, and I was born and raised in New Hampshire.
Mariah?
Good morning. I'm Mariah. I'm with Centura Health, and I love traveling. I was just in Cuba.
Cool. Amanda?
Hi, Amanda Mercer from Department of Education School Nutrition Unit. I have lived in Argentina before and plan to live abroad again someday soon.
Awesome. Dana?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dana with Garfield County Public Health, and I just became a certified yoga teacher.
Nice. You can teach us all.
Yes.
Sarah?
Sarah Robinson, Mesa County Public Health. I have a side gig as a professional belly dancer.
Nice. Kelly?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Wagner with the Piton Foundation and director of Get Ahead Colorado campaign. I grew up in New Mexico, so I'm a green chili aficionado. And I am always paying attention to the war between who has the best green chili between Colorado and New Mexico.
That's important. On to the phone numbers ending with 3423.
Do you want me to read?
Yeah, do it.
3423, are you there?
Hi, that might be me, Laquita. I don't know my work phone number. Yeah, that's me. That's me. This is Laquita Walker with the Center for African American Health, and I write poetry and working on my first novel.
Thanks, Laquita. And 0167.
Hi, this is Courtney Mills with Denver Human Services. I actually used to work in publishing, so Laquita, you know what's up. And I volunteer with Denver Urban Gardens.
And 1083.
Hi, this is Kathy Smith with Arapahoe County Human Services, and I would say one fun fact is that I have a 7.5-month-old daughter, and she just learned how to wave yesterday.
Oh.
Thanks, Kathy.
John? I saw that you just joined. Do you want to say your name, organization, and a fun fact? Vinny, do you want to say hi?
Oh, yeah. What is fun fact and where we're going?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Vinny Cervantes, Denver Alliance for Street Health Response, and a fun fact is I just got a niece.
Nice.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Did we miss anyone on the phone? I think we're good. Okay, awesome. As I said, I want to say thank you, everyone. At our last meeting, we had a great discussion, and I want to say I think we're at where we are today because of all that discussion. So as a recap, we looked through the Partners for Hunger-Free Organ collateral, and we talked a lot through the messaging, the photographs, what may be missing or what needs to be different. Had a lot of discussion around like what do people really know about SNAP right now, and who is our target audience. And you know, we kind of came to the goal of we're looking at people who are maybe eligible but haven't enrolled yet, and how we could overcome some of the stigmas. But with that, we decided that we would come up with some collateral for you guys to take a look at, which Michelle is going to present today. We wanted to look at some of the things you guys really liked about the other ones and some of the things maybe you didn't like, and target certain populations that maybe had a different story. So an aging population versus a young family are going to be motivated by different things. So we wanted to make sure to incorporate that. I don't want to take over. Michelle can say it much more beautifully than I can, so I'm going to turn it over to her to present some of the materials that she has created. And I just want to say thank you because I think they look great, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, please. I'm just going to stand up so I can see everybody and you all can see me. So this is just a little bit of repetition here, but I did just want to start out at the beginning of this by reminding us of some of the things that we agreed on the last time, as well as some of the things that we learned kind of show up in the research over and over again as being sort of best practices across the country and some of the most effective ways to approach SNAP marketing. I also want to we're going to talk about this again, but I want to say this up front too. I also want us to be realistic about what we're trying to accomplish with these materials, right? We all understand that there are many different hurdles and barriers to actual SNAP enrollment and use of SNAP in an effective way for yourself or your family. And our job in this small project is to try to help people take the next step, to try to help people recognize there might be a program that could help them and take the next step to learn more. Okay, so I want us to be realistic about that because we're not going to solve all of the problems and challenges and barriers that we have with a poster, and we all know that. But if we can get people to learn a little bit more, maybe they can find the next resource to help them get over the next hurdle to enrollment. And given the challenges that we have with enrollment on both SNAP and WIC, we've got to do all that we can at every stage of this effort. So what I hope you will see in the materials that I'm going to show you are these three key areas, as well as I hope you will see that they respond to a lot of the feedback that we got in the last meeting. For those of you who weren't able to join us the last time, we started out specifically with collateral from Oregon in an interest to not recreate the wheel. We looked around the country at campaigns that were particularly successful in moving the needle in their own states, and we're thinking that we can just adapt those for Colorado in ways that we need to. I think that lens has been broadened a little bit with this set of collateral that I'm showing you, because I know that there were some needs that I think folks did not feel the Oregon campaign maybe addressed. So I've brought in some additional content for you all to look at and potentially adopt all of it or adopt just part of it. I want to leave that to the group for a conversation, but what we know from the research and from successful campaigns is that this stuff needs to be human-centered, not a bunch of, you know, the first step. People don't take the first step because you gave them federal regulations, those sorts of things, right? We also know that the campaigns need to try to address some of the stigma or some of the preconceived notions that people have in their head, like, well, if I take SNAP benefits, then it'll take it away from someone else who deserves it or needs it more than me, or it's not worth going through all the headache because I'm only going to get $5 anymore, something like that, right? So some of those preconceived notions. And then we also know from the research that health and wellness to some degree is compelling to people, especially now because we talk about so much of our food intake in the larger context of health and wellness across the spectrum. So I hope you'll see some of this in there. If you don't see some of this in there that you want to see, you're going to let me know, okay? So I'm just going to walk you through the 3 concepts, and a couple of things I want to acknowledge about these right now. These are not all the photography that you are going to want to see, okay? I'm just showing you 3 different ways that we can approach this. And I also want to tell you that if this group decides that we're going to approach it from all 3 directions, that's fine too with me. And I'll build out as much of this as you all want to see built out, and then we'll find ways to make it accessible and available. There may be some value in building out all of these campaigns and then seeing what people actually use the most of. It might give us some indication of what messaging is actually working without going through really expensive focus groups and lots of polling and all of those other things, right? So the first concept is one that I think, you know, I certainly see online a fair amount as a way to approach specifically the senior community who we see often feel like if they take this benefit, it will not go to somebody else who may need it more than they do, right? This sort of self-sacrificing approach to this. So just showing people how many seniors in Colorado right now these numbers are actually accurate, thanks to CDHS. So how many seniors right now are using SNAP to help buy healthy food. We can also apply this to families if we think some of that stigma exists around families feeling like maybe we're a working family and there's other families who need it more than we do. But I'm just showing you 2 different iterations of this. And again, I respect the fact that there's lots more photography we can use to be more inviting to different groups of folks, but I just wanted to show you this concept done a couple of times. I'm also, we can also change out this messaging here, and so many of your packets have this. If you need to see it a little bit, if this is some sort of horrible eye test for you that makes you crazy, it's in packets as well. So if you want to take a look around, you can see it that way too. We also, all of these have the same, applying for SNAP is easy, 3 things you can do to do that, as well as a place for each organization that wants to use these to insert their own logo. So this is the first concept, first approach. The second approach is really that straightforward approach that I think, I don't know who it was, somebody said it in the last meeting, but basically you need a little extra help paying for food. SNAP is for you. So again, connecting the word SNAP to food, because as everyone rightly pointed out, most people don't know what SNAP is. If you've never heard of the program, you certainly don't know what it does. And so really just keeping that simple, again, with the language around working people, or we can insert seniors into that language, whatever we think might work there better. And then the simple ways for getting help. And in a place to customize this as well. And again, we can build out all this photography as broadly as we want to. And then the third concept is one that addresses this issue that it's not worth it for me to go through the headache of trying to apply because I won't get much money. I know that, I know I've sat in rooms with all of you and many others where people start to get a little uncomfortable about putting a dollar figure to it because you can't do that accurately, right? There's a lot of factors that determine the dollar figure, but honestly, I thought about this in relation to the average amount that you get is more than $100 typically. And if I think about a grocery run for my family, that would pay for, you know, a couple weeks of groceries for my family, which I think if I had challenges around money, that might be helpful to see that number. So we can also work with that number if people don't like that number and think there's a better number we can use. But anyway, this is just really focused around the idea that it is worth it to you to try to take the next step because you get enough support, financial support, to make it worth your while. So those are the 3 concepts I built out for you. Again, these are based on various campaigns from around the country that I think have been successful in various states. So, and you all understand that we have not done any focus grouping or anything like that here. And we're trying to just create these materials and not recreate a wheel, but follow what we think are best practices and what we understand the research is showing us and what experience in other states is showing us. So I guess at this point, I'd like to just be quiet and let you all just give me some feedback on what you think here. All of this language is completely changeable, right? Anything that needs to be changed, I'm happy to do. And again, I don't want to force the group into picking one concept. If you feel like all of these concepts should be built out, but for different maybe categories of folks, you know, that this concept needs to be built out for families, for example, or we can do that as well. So, and then we'll get to translation in a minute, but just in terms of just the actual content, yes.
Can you just read, I have this one that starts with SNAP at the bottom, but that
Yeah.
says families. Can you read?
So
Yeah.
everybody, just for context, I put 2 in each one. So between groups of 3, you should have them all if you want to share them between groups. But
So what I wrote here is families across Colorado struggle to make ends meet. The average monthly assistance for people enrolled in SNAP or food stamps is more than $100. If that would go a long way to helping you or your family, consider joining the program today. It's easy to sign up and allows you to use a simple debit card to make shopping a SNAP. And that's it. And then you go right into call somebody at Hunger Free, call somebody at 211, you know, visit Colorado Peak. So very simple, yeah.
I just had one comment about whatever photo we end up with the individual person, it still mentions families.
Yes.
The weird part is that individuals will worry that they're going to take money
From families, great, yep. We'll switch that out for sure. Yep.
we had some comments on the phone.
Great.
So Dana said she likes the text in the posters, assuming these will also be in Spanish, which you mentioned. We'll talk about the translation later. How to encourage images of real life people on the photos, on the posters we choose. I understand these are stock photos, but all these people look like supermodels and not real people, and more representation of our Latinx and African American populations across the board. Kelly asked about this message at the top is if $100 is enough to move people to take action and offset the time it takes to apply, and then also to simplify the 3 ways to apply. So maybe use something more visual to break up the text, which is down here.
Okay.
And then Dana added, is there a way to integrate some language matter shopping on a budget to these posters?
Yep.
First, the design on the right. And Dana said, I think the $100 average per month works for families, but not for seniors. Dana, Kelly, and anybody else on the phone, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Is Dana saying that the average is over $100 a month for a family, but not for seniors? Are we talking about the individual benefit level for each individual on SNAP is more than $100 a month?
It's different.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to Michelle's point though, that kind of having just one number might draw attention. I mean, we definitely see that with DT's practices, that you do generate some interest, though families will, or individuals will attach to a number.
Right, and I know there's a danger with that, and if this group feels that's way too uncomfortable, we don't have to go down this road. I was just looking for some way to make it reasonable for you to even want to try, right? If you know something about the program, but what you think you know is it's only $15 or something.
So Dana responded that seniors get significantly less per month. So I think it's just about aligning expectations with the messaging.
Seniors get, she's saying seniors get less than that from the SNAP program.
Yes.
The
On
average for
average,
seniors.
on average. We could give you those averages.
The population is not that almost.
There was a question on the phone about the $100 number. Is that enough to actually get people to take action? Setting aside the senior issue, is that enough to actually get people to take action? I feel like the number that I found was $134 was the average. Yeah. I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm obviously trying to keep it real simple, so I'm trying not to get a lot of language about 134.52 average people, you know, kind of stuff. But
the question is, could more than $100 a month? So I think that's good enough.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
There's probably research showing like at what number do people take action, and we could relate it back, but I'm not sure what that research says.
Does EBT, do you guys know what that number is?
So I can go back to my team and kind of ask. I'm not sure. I do know that having that number has been proven to have that call to action. And so I think it is important to make sure that the language is a little up to average, more, you know, to kind of give that little leeway when people do go to apply. But we do often see on our lettering that when we actually do put that number, we get a higher response than when there's no number at all. So we have seen some benefits with that.
Great. What are thoughts about just putting a range there and not being specific? You can get from X amount to X amount up to whatever. In that way.
What is that range? I don't know.
Yeah, it's low.
How much?
But how do we,
$10?
how do we address the senior situation where they only get what, $15 you're saying?
I wouldn't put anything on the senior.
I wondered if
I would
maybe the
just
issue
leave it
is,
like
is having
this.
it be a month. Like, could more than $100 help you or your family? Like, remove a month, because one of the strategies we do in outreach is you can roll your money over from month to month. So maybe when the holidays are rolling around, you've saved up your money to help with that dinner that you're going to host with your family. So it might just be a month that we remove to.
Oh, you can roll it over?
You can. So if you're getting 15, even lowest, you can roll it over to your research time, right? To the time you have to spend it. So.
How long is that
That's
time?
even good to know, because I
think you can roll it for 3 months.
Okay.
over 3 months.
There's a couple more good ideas online. One of them is, would offering an equivalent of what $100 would buy help? Like so many meals or so many pounds of veggies. And then Kelly's saying they use up to $. I don't know what that means exactly. Kelly.
So maybe it's just up to using the max amount that you can get. But Kelly, did you want to clarify that?
Maybe. And then the range, there's some support for the range idea. If we could, I don't know, EBT, I don't want to ask you guys to do too much, but is it possible that you guys could give us a little bit of insight into what you understand the best practices there, and we can.
Hi, this is Kelly.
Oh, thanks, Kelly. What does that mean? We use up to number $$.
Oh, so in our EITC campaign for the tax credit, we it's a huge amount. So we say you may qualify for up to $6,400. So, and the call to action is to have them go online and calculate how much they can actually get. But we definitely use the biggest possible number, and it does drive people to take action.
Okay.
So I think, a number, the higher number will incentivize, but also lead to more people that are upset when they get something lower than that.
Yeah.
So part of what we got to figure out is just what side do we want to cheat on? Do we want folks that we're bringing in and also increasing the people that are kind of pissed off because we said $100 and they got 15.
Right. Well, I think that too, and I think half that go, part to training staff too, letting them know, maybe there's a strategic way too, and letting staff know, those that are going to be on the ground enrolling people, letting them know about the messaging and, you know, having kind of those trainings to maybe be able to navigate those difficult situations.
And that's why I like the average, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I wonder if putting like an annual amount on here might help, because even the annual amount for $15 a month, you get to like $180, which is, I don't know, like, does that
I don't know
drive
if we
people?
could pull it that way. We'll have to see because of research and when people are on and off the program.
Yeah.
But the average is nice because it tells you just, if you have a big family, if you have a small family, if you have just you, this is the average that people are getting. We can pull those averages by audience, right? So for our seniors, for our households, that might be helpful to this. And maybe with some BDT research, we can come up with another.
Is this average for a household, the more than $100 a month?
I think it's the 134
Is the average of the household. That's what I said,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's not per individual participant.
Yeah, it's per household for 134, right? That's my estimate.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll wait for some more feedback on this piece. And then something that just came up, which I'd like to just kind of put a pin in for when we start talking about the kinds of assets we want to build out and all of that, is maybe is it possible for us to build out a sort of something you could download and use that is a simple staff training document? Not that it's not better to have people physically trained one-on-one, but if your organization can't do anything else, download this with the coaster, because these are a few talking points you'd want a staffer to use while they're talking from this. Again, to get to addressing this whole $100 or 134 or whatever number it is that we end up using. Maybe we could provide just a little assistance about here's a few good talking points to get them started down the road. Maybe. Can we go backwards, Kevin? Any other feedback on the other two? And again, I do want you all to think about, should we, obviously in communications, as just a sort of communications person, I think about having a single campaign so that there's repetition, right? But I think we've all acknowledged in these conversations that might not necessarily be the best course given the diverse number of populations and ages and all of that we're trying to reach. So maybe you all want to give me direction that we build out all three of these, and let organizations who are trying to reach people decide which of the materials they want to use. So I just wanted to, is there any feedback on this one, the one that really connects to, you're not taking something from someone else, this program is here for everyone who needs it, look how many thousands of other people are using this right now, it's okay kind of message?
Yeah, I like at the top where you have the numbers, in Colorado, X amount of seniors or X amount of families, because then I can visualize that this is needed and people are taking advantage of it. So, you know, that part I think would incentivize me to find out what it's all about. I noticed though on there's the two different messages where you have for working people from across the state use SNAP or food stamps, and then here you have SNAP commonly called food stamps. Yeah. Can you make that consistent with both? Say sure. SNAP is commonly called food stamps, sure, rather than saying or, because now it's like, do I have choice or is it the same
okay.
thing?
It's not the same. Okay, yeah, absolutely. I can fix that language, no problem. And I know we had some discussion in the last meeting about whether we keep using the word food stamps. And, you know, I from a communications perspective, I fall in line with Hunger Free, which is people don't know what SNAP is, so you have to tell them what it is. And the only way to tell them what it is in a short number of words is to call them food stamps, because that's what people know. So if folks have an objection to that, we should discuss that as well. But I just want to tell people what they're trying to sign up for. Yes?
I don't have an objection to that, but at the last meeting, I think the state agency said something about how the program is called food assistance.
Food assistance.
And will that be confusing when you direct people to eat?
I think there were three, then you can speak to it. But.
Yeah, it's called, they're all three are out there, so I think just being consistent, if when they get to the application process, it will be called the Food Assistance Program on our website.
Alrighty, so how do we deal with that? Because we certainly don't want to be in a situation where we're saying SNAP, commonly called food stamps. We also like to call it food assistance, right? I mean, you're basically
Why don't you just Why don't we just say food assistance and get rid of food stamps? Because especially when you're dealing with an older population, they remember people actually getting out the book of stamps and paying it at, and they may remember that and may not want to do that now.
Okay. So is there are two of them more common, like a SNAP and food assistance more common than food stamps, or are all three used interchangeably?
I think they're all three used interchangeably, and when I looked at Oregon's materials, they were also used interchangeably. So I don't think there's consistency even in the partners who are doing this really well in other states.
Right.
So
is there a way to
I was lean on research here.
So can we, if that's the case, it's interesting because it's commonly called food stamps in the community, but it's called something else when you're paying.
Yes.
So is there an opportunity to say, what is it, food assistance program?
Yeah.
And then in parentheses, food stamps, or opposite, food stamps, in parentheses, food assistance program, so at least the wording is on the flyer somewhere?
Or even something like SNAP is a food assistance program commonly called food stamps.
As long as we get the food assistance program.
Yeah,
it's
a lot.
Well, that's probably the easiest way to make that language work, which is SNAP, a food assistance program commonly called food stamps, and then move on.
Yeah, or in the red section where it says applying for SNAP, you could say applying for food assistance is easy.
Yeah.
You know, there might be some other ways to pull that.
To work it in.
Just have to put it in there somewhere.
Okay, okay, you got it. Yeah, we can
I
do
like
SNAP.
SNAP, a food assistance program commonly called food stamps. Because
But you're thinking on the senior posters, just leave the stamps off altogether?
Yeah, because we know that with senior hunger, we know that with seniors who are food insecure, we know that and I'm talking about older generations, I'm talking about 78 plus, they see it as taking charity. And they don't want to do that because they were raised not doing that type of thing. And so when they think of it as food stamps, they remember seeing other people actually back in the day when you actually had to tear out the stamps from the book and pay that way. And so it's very hard to get them to take SNAP because of that.
However, I think if I know what you're saying, but I think if they realize it's more like a credit card where nobody knows it's a food stamp, it could be a debit card or a credit card or whatever.
And that's why if you put that language in there too, then that would be helpful. Because I think I saw language in here somewhere that it's a debit card or something.
Yep.
Yeah, it says debit card.
Yeah, and then that way.
Yeah.
I think it should be
It's a debt card,
yeah.
yeah.
Either way.
I mean, it should be that. Let's fix that. Get that fixed. Yeah, we dropped the I.
Okay.
We don't need eyes. Your eyes read it.
So there's a comment from the phone that I want to call out to you all. Wanted to give feedback to the poster, say that it can help anyone who needs some extra help. I think all of the marketing needs to be clear that eligibility must be met so that it isn't misleading, that it will be able to assist anyone in need.
That's a good point, especially if you're putting the amount, like, you know, would whatever the language is, would $100 help or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think that's based on qualifications and.
So let me ask this larger contextual question, because I think that we've had this content question come up on a few of these iterations with $100, with using the word anyone. Where do we put the fences for encouraging people to talk to staff to get the next bit of information about, am I eligible? Can I enroll? How do you enroll? Where do those fences go? Because I don't want to create consternation for the actual staff on the ground trying to help people get signed up, and then people find out I don't get $100 or I'm not eligible or whatever. At the same time, these posters are this content is intended to just try to get them to take the next step, which is find somebody who knows about the program and ask them for help and have them help you decide whether this is right for you, whether you are eligible, whether you can. So what's the balance here that you all feel we should strike? Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could potentially modify the language around applying for SNAP as easy and put something around kind of determine eligibility, that's not the right words.
Like
We
find
can
out if you're eligible.
Find out if you're eligible by contacting.
Yeah. What if you just put it in smaller print below?
Yeah.
What if you just put a smaller print below? Because I like applying for SNAP is easy. You can, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
And then maybe below saying based on eligibility or something like that.
In the yellow, yeah.
Yeah.
Learn
And
more
we
about
find
it.
What if you say find out if you're eligible?
And I don't know that we really need to drive traffic to the Blueprint site on this necessarily. I was trying to give them a web location they could go to, so they could go to Peak instead. I just know that Peak is really.
Yeah, I almost felt like the Blueprint website could go right under the logo, if that made sense. It just so there was some reference to it, because I like having it there, but.
Right, but we're not going to be a portal. We're not, well, I should defer to Erin, but I don't see it's going to be a portal to sign up for SNAP. So I don't, so we can absolutely move that out, and then we can put language in here that's sort of like, talk to someone to find out if you're eligible or how to enroll or to get enrollment assistance or something there. That's a little bit more descriptive about what you get at any one of these portals.
So Michelle, remind me if
based on
these,
eligibility. Something fast and easy.
Yeah.
were these bullets going to be modifiable, or was that, where in it was going to be modifiable? I know you have placeholder for.
So I don't know, what would you all like to be modifiable? I mean, here's the challenge that we get into is that these, right now these are PDFs, right? So that you could easily drop one quick little logo in and get them printed. The more modifiable we make them, the less likely that I can hold them in this format. They probably have to go into like some kind of a Word document or something, so you could, right? There's portals that you can do that with.
You can do modifiable PDFs though.
You can, but how much?
Just the text.
Just the text?
You can
Okay,
do just text.
so then I guess we can make it all. I mean, whatever you want. What do you want?
Well, one thought I was having about the Peak website is we do have the benefits launch website, and we have gotten some feedback from our counties. We're doing the soft pilot now, that it's more user-friendly. They feel like it's more engaging to help with determining next steps for eligibility. And so I just want there to be, in the communities that we're working with, particularly their outreach partners, some of them, it might not be the Colorado, the hotline that's the best number for them to call, or 211, right? If they're in particularly rural or frontier areas. So I just want there to be some modifications for partners and community members to give them the best services for their area.
What would they do?
That's one of the comments on the phone too, is like call the, am I eligible on Peak, or contact their local county office.
Yeah. Yep. And
so the other way that we could go about this is we could build out multiple more versions that have different arrangements of these bullets about what we're asking, and then the organization wouldn't have to do any modifying. The question is, if we're in a rural or frontier area, or anywhere for that example, do you have access to the PDF? Can you? Because not all versions of Adobe allow you to.
That's
true. The free one doesn't allow you to do much of anything other than look at a PowerPoint or at a PDF. So should we do different combinations of this that would allow people to just simply download the poster and print? And I don't know the answer to that question, but
I don't think we have so many variables in our counties and the different partners that we have. I would just love there to be some flexibility, at least within the, maybe within the Blueprint members, to get some posters out there.
Yeah. What if we had like two templates? So one this, and then one that was more like vague, contact your local public health. And then we have one that is modifiable. So that if people can't download the one that's modifiable, they at least have some standard templates that they could use because that's based on technology really, and we can't control that.
Does that seem comfortable to everybody? Yeah.
I would prefer to send potential individuals to our outreach partners versus directly to the counties. That's my only.
Yeah, I didn't mean the text. I just meant like templated.
Gotcha.
Like here's one language. You guys know the language. Wait,
right.
I don't know.
Only just because I think we'll get some immediate service for them to get the application.
So to that point, what do you think should be the templated language for the two options?
Well, we could talk it through.
Yeah, because I would say, at least for benefits launch, which I know some feedback too from counties, I mean, because it isn't an application. And so I know there was a little bit of confusion. So having that apply for SNAP is easy. We would want to adjust that language because it is in fact a screening tool more so than an application, because what it does do is it then leads you to either calling a number, visiting the Peak website or doing it in person, whether it's at the county office or at another CBO. So we would definitely, if we were to put benefits launch on here, which we would love to do, we would just want that confusion where they think they're going to this, website takes about a minute or two to do, and then it's the next step sort of thing. Right. So we need to just clarify.
I'm almost wondering, Michelle, if you'd be open for the outreach partners just to provide some feedback on this. And
or
then,
we can set up a
yeah.
protocol if you want to be on it. What we can provide as sort of set language, and then obviously we can provide every single one of these as make the language whatever you need it to be. And if you have it'll rely on them having the right version of Adobe to do that.
I was wondering if there was the possibility of having a full SNAP logo on here, just so that somewhere we had the actual acronym spelled out, but not like take up text room for that.
Yep.
I had
Yep.
a comment on the senior one.
Yeah.
Just to take on the healthy food on the menu off, the menu part of it, because it makes it seem like they have a limited selection. And
Okay.
just say healthy food.
Yep. Okay.
On the Colorado Peak website, can that be made into a vanity URL or a bit.ly or something that's shorter?
Yep.
I know it's still on the ones that are up, and on the other copy it talks about choosing between, your heating and that. I think it says eating. I think it would be like groceries. When I read like choose between like heating and eating, I was like, well, like looking something, but
yeah.
So just a small thing there. But I think also with the modifiable ones, would we have any like set resources and then like one area be modifiable, or would it just be purely because we have a lot of outreach sites as well, and I know it'd be good. They'd probably like information there, but it might be good to have like a set resource and then like a modifiable area. Like here's an overall one, and here's a local.
Sure. And modifiable up here or just in here?
Well, when we were talking about, like where to contact.
Exactly. Yeah. So my thought would be that we just do two versions of everything. One of them would let you modify it, and one of them would just suggest. Or we could just have the version that suggests and then just indicate which ones you could change. Right? So if you don't have a PDF that allows you to modify, please use this one. And if you do, go crazy. Anything else on this one or the other one? Can you go to the next one?
Yeah. And then just before we go there, Kelly again suggested maybe switching that out with some sort of infographic. So maybe you have a picture of like a phone here with the phone number and a computer with the website link or something like that.
Colorado.gov /.
And that was for the Am I eligible?
Yeah.
And
got it. Yeah, so do folks like this one at all, or is it too simplistic, or is it, or do we think there's a value in building this one out as well? This one is real simple. Like this came right out of our conversation last time, where it's just very, a little extra help, Snap is for you. That's it. It's nothing complicated. And then this language, of course, can be modified. Working people from across the state, we can put in seniors from across the state, or families from across the state, or with this language, I was just addressing that just because you're working doesn't mean you might not qualify if you checked into it. And then again, I will modify in every place the food stamps. So food assistance, commonly called food stamps. So we can get that. And that's not too many more words. It should be fine. And I don't think it's wildly confusing. I think people can understand, bless you, what the words food assistance together mean.
a little more comments here. Courtney Mills said we had feedback at Denver Human Services that people don't trust or aren't comfortable with using digital platforms to apply. So if they can have an option letting folks know that they can come in, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And that's also a change that she could make with an editable file.
Yep.
And then Laquita said showing the 3 ways to apply is helpful, but it will be beneficial to let people know they can apply in person. The Center for African American Health will be completing applications in person.
Got it.
What I'm hearing is we need a modifiable version.
Absolutely, I think we just do, right?
Which is awesome. That's good to know, though.
That's fun. We can make that happen.
I was gonna give feedback. I like the simple one. The only message I don't see on that one that I think, at least I thought resonated well, was that SNAP allows you a choice and it gives you the debit card.
Yeah, a choice, yeah.
And I don't know the messaging, but it seems like that might be helpful to add to that one.
Okay.
I do think we should try to keep that text still in that blue area as distinct as possible.
Yeah.
Right, so what you can see me doing in the blue area on all three of these versions is giving you one message, right? And not, you can do this, and you can do that, and you might want to do this, you could, so that's what I was doing, because I just didn't want it to get too choice.
Well, people won't read it if there's too much text, so you want to make sure it's short enough.
You may remember from the Oregon stuff, that they had like 3 bullets underneath their main headline that was sort of like, it gives you a choice and it gives you enough. Or, I mean, there was like 3 different messages they were delivering there. I opted not to go down just because it felt like too much to me, especially when because you end up with like, you can do this or this or this, and to apply, you go to here, 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 and then people start to go zone out. So, I can also try to do some different variations on this theme that have a slightly different message here, or maybe add one more message to each of the blue ones. So working families use it, and that's good, and you get a choice. It only tells you where to shop. Something like that.
Overall, they're really good and concise.
Okay, yeah, and I will try to resist the urge to put in too much in each one, just so they don't, they get too convoluted. Okay, let's keep moving.
Is there an option of doing one specific for college students, for students?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think we need that.
So yeah, I think some of our questions actually, Michelle, were, are there any missing audiences that we need to focus on? And I guess we've talked a lot about the messaging, but like, so the photos we said are real photos, but I think we want real photos, but of what populations? I think is another thing that's important to know.
Yeah, and your point is heard loud and clear. We'll do the best that we can as this is stock photography. So there's, stock photography has its limitations in terms of the sort of photos we're taking pictures of, but we'll work very hard to make them.
I know there's several stock photography out there with African American families. I would love to see.
Yep. And I noted that from last time too.
So college students.
But I know several college students that can use this that are just struggling, and they are choosing not to eat because they have no choice. I shouldn't say they're choosing, they just cannot eat.
Right.
Cannot afford it. And so to be able to help them, and they're not making that much money at work study and getting on scholarship money, student loans. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will work on that. Also, I don't think there's any sort of rural feeling representation here that I think we definitely need on any of these. And I've also, just for the folks on the phone, I also noted that that there needs to be more representation for Latinx populations, as well as your point about an African American family as a whole. So what I will do on the next iteration is I will build out a lot of different photography for you all to see, and then you can go back yet one more time and say, okay, you've missed this population, or I don't like this, whatever that piece is. Benny, I'm interested in your thinking on this. We certainly are representing folks who are shopping in grocery stores, and is there anything that I'm missing from the populations that you serve, or visually that we could do for the populations that you serve that might be a little different than what I'm doing here that could be useful?
Honestly, I think the mention about students is like really
the student piece.
Yeah,
okay.
Because my first thought would be to put them around your area, just because that's such a high concentration of Black people from across the state.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
So yeah, students. Area campus. Sorry.
No, I thought you were fine.
Can they use SNAP on Auraria? They can't, can they?
They don't have any places where they can accept food stamps, but because it's all prepared, I think.
There's a King Soopers down the street.
Yeah, there's stuff around, and
Okay.
like, you know, that was a big effort on the campus that I think still might be going on, is like trying to get places that can accept SNAP on the campus itself.
Does the campus have a farmer's market at all during the week?
No. I know that they have a garden that they've like tried to, but they haven't really expanded that very much. That's also like another piece of it. Like one thing that they were trying to create was a campus kitchen, and that's like a different organizing effort. But yeah, I mean, there's just like such a range of ages and like backgrounds that go to Auraria that I think that like this would be the first place that I would put up posters.
Yeah.
Okay. Food pantry here? Do you know?
Yes, there is.
There is a food pantry.
Because I was just actually in the Tivoli, and there's, and what I wasn't sure of though is like the sign says road runners who need food or something, and then there was a place to go in, and I didn't know whether that meant anybody who used the campus or only people who went to MSU. I wasn't clear on that, but yes, there, I definitely saw one of those in the Tivoli. What? Yeah, it was a food bank. Yep.
Yeah, so it's up there.
And I know I was at Arapahoe Community College, like I'm wondering, is it a consistent thing at most campuses, or is it pretty focused? Okay, I didn't know.
I'd say they're getting more and more common.
Okay.
The Department of Higher Education is getting into this as an issue. They just had a meeting recently about it.
Great. Wonderful.
And they've been doing some data sharing work at the state level between the Department of Higher Ed, SNAP, and WIC to try and get a better understanding of the student population and who's enrolled in what services. And I don't know where that project sits, but I can get some more information before our next meeting.
Okay. All right. Is any additional feedback that we need to people at farmers or markets or farm stands? Is something from the phone? Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's. We're through our first hour together, so let's keep moving unless there's any other burning issues that you want to talk about in terms of the content. Okay. The next thing I want to do is, again, we just wanted to talk for a second about our desired outcomes. Yeah, that's great. So I want to make sure that we don't want to add anything to this list that's really crucial, and I also want to really focus you on the third bullet here. So obviously raising awareness is important of the program wherever we can. Supporting increased enrollment, I say supporting increased enrollment and not increasing enrollment, because I think we all understand what these posters and other assets are intended to do, and their limitations given other barriers. But we were also, so we all know that the blueprint will ultimately have a larger evaluative component that will give us feedback on all the various pieces that we're working on. That it's not ready quite yet, and so rather than stop for months on this project, are there ways that we can build in metrics that we think could be meaningful or useful for giving us both feedback on what's working and also allowing us some iteration, right? So if we figure out that this one poster is working really well, or we get feedback from the field that this language doesn't work and it needs to be changed, I can do that easily, and we can provide the assets again. Yes?
We could, because someone had mentioned making the link shorter. You can have inevitable bit.ly links. So one would be like senior SNAP, and then you can figure out which posters are performing better based on use of the bit.ly link.
You mean how many are being downloaded?
How many people are going to that website?
It's like
Use that
tracking.
bit.ly to go to, like, how many people type in that website?
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it'd be tracking which is giving that first step process.
Right.
So we just got to be aware of that, which is super important and easy to do.
Yes. Is it worth creating 2 clicks for our seniors? That's my only question, is if we can drive them directly to a place they can enroll, is it worth it for us to get that tracking piece first? Does that make sense? We're not going to run into.
You would want to send them 2 places. I think wherever the bit.ly link goes should go to the place where they can like sign up.
The bit.ly goes directly.
Okay.
You would have a
But
different
then it has to go
for
directly.
different audiences, different posters, right?
They all
This is
point to
where
the
you're
same
thinking.
place.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would just
You end
have
up the same
different-
place, but the entry point would be different. So you can
Okay.
track which entry
Which one?
points
Gotcha.
are getting
Yep.
the highest hits.
Okay.
So It's really good.
When you say sort of, I'm thinking. The entry point, is that the same as the screening point? Because you mentioned something about they're going to be screened first, and then they go to another link that they actually apply.
So
are we only interested in just the point where they get screened? Because that's the follow-up piece, the initial piece?
To some degree, it's a different question. We got to figure out what website people end up at. But what we're talking about is here is Bitly is like you have multiple Bitlys that lead you to whatever that is.
It's just like a short link that redirects somewhere else.
So it's a great question, but it's a little bit separate from what we're talking about here.
It's further, that's further down the line.
So it's just a download, they downloaded it, that's it.
Well, yeah, they basically, the thing about Bitly is that it's supposed to be short, but you can remember it. So like say it would be Bitly/Colorado Senior Snap. But that links would go to the same place as Colorado Family Snap. Just to see that like the flyers are sending people somewhere.
So there could either go to Peak, which has an application, or it could go to like BDT's Launch, which is just a screening tool. So I think we have to figure that out. But I mean, I think your question around, is it enough to get people accessing kind of that initial first step for this is what we should be measuring. I mean, I think there's a lot of other steps after that we should be looking at as well, but I don't know that this group or these materials will necessarily make a difference.
I'm just getting back to your initial point. You said you want them, our whole goal is to just have them take that the next step.
Right.
Is this Bitly link that next step that you're looking for?
Yes.
It's one of the options, so it's not the only, but.
Right. The complication is just that we're going to let people change all that content. So we won't be able to, unless we want to force that one piece of content on them, we can't, right?
Yeah, it does sound like also the thing that people are talking about wanting to be editable is the in-person information. Is that, that's kind of what I was
There's
hearing.
3 bullets.
All 3.
Yeah, it sounds like everything. We could take this kind of speaks to distribution, but we could take one step backwards and put these resources somewhere and at least see who's downloading them to use.
And I think that's 2 different things. One is tracking, like understanding how many organizations are using them, and then this was more of like how are the individuals taking it.
Right, but I don't know how we control both of those if we're letting people change that content about. So if we knew that what organizations were using them, and then we could solicit feedback from them on what kinds of response they're getting, is that enough? I mean, again, none of this is perfect evaluation, I understand that, but I want to try to do something with it that's meaningful, that we could provide some feedback to the group outside of hiring a firm and having them come in. Does that sound, if we put, in terms of this is distribution and metrics all at the same time, but if we put these resources somewhere that we can track who's downloading them, we'd at least know what organizations are using them. And then we could follow up with them in some sort of a survey form for what kinds of response they think they're getting. I know it'll be imperfect, it'll be certainly much more qualitative than most of us would like, but it might be better. And it might also provide us an avenue for getting some real-time feedback from them on like, this thing's not working, or this language is terrible, needs to be changed, and then we can do it.
Well, and maybe you could do a combination of the 2. Like if the Bitly addresses are there and as part of the standard, people could obviously change them, but if we can track what if we're going to be following up with the organizations anyway, we can see if they're using the Bitly addresses, we can see general reach and if it's having an impact based on what we think that, or the population that the organization is reaching. I don't know.
Yes, this might be completely unworkable, I don't know, but back when there used to be a thing called the Yellow Pages, they used to have like a special phone number in the ad so that if people called for the service, they would know that it was generated by someone looking at the Yellow Pages.
That's essentially what Bitly is doing, but with the URL.
But I mean,
So it's like a different URL that gets you to the same end. And then you can see which URLs are getting the highest.
but if it's mostly organizations using the Bitly.
No, well, I don't think the organizations use it, right? It'd be the end consumer. Organizations using this product, and then the client is using one of these 3 ways. what we're talking about, you would only know for the web.
Right.
But if we did this, we would know, and each one of these products had a different billing, we'd know which product people are actually clicking into. So maybe this one's really working and that one's really not.
Like order materials, and I just filled up my name, email address, and my organization, and how many I wanted.
Get it.
Yeah, and it was just really.
Then on wherever they're available for download, you can look at the analytics on the back and see which ones they're downloading.
Right. Oh, that's a good idea.
Right. So, you know, we could see who's getting in there, and then we could see which ones are getting the most activity.
So you did both. You'd see what organizations are interested in
Yeah.
and what clients are actually responding to.
Totally. Okay. Action. So I think the other question is the feedback from organizations, like if there are certain things we're looking for from them, or
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've had two goals at this table for a lot of our conversations. One is to sort of have something happen in an iterative way, so that we're not doing what we get locked in doing sometimes, which is put stuff out there and then never know whether any of it worked or hear back from anybody. So I'd like to create some kind of a feedback loop for these materials, so that organizations feel like they can come back and say, I've been using this photo doesn't work, or this language is making people angry because now they're not getting this, we need to change the language, and we can do that. So that we can be iterative as we move along, and then also create a situation where we get some good data from them, or at least some qualitative data from them about, yeah, you know, we use these things, this really worked. It would be really helpful if we had a staff guide to, you know, how to talk from the poster to get them to the next step, which is the eligibility or the application.
How soon do you want to use these? Right.
How soon? As soon as we all agree that they're good to go.
Is there a way to, I just think with community outreach, there's so many different festivals and things that are happening that maybe you can get a booth and kind of get people's opinions at events, you know, with an incentive, a contest, and we're doing something, tell us whether flyer 2, 3, or 4 works for you. I just feel like there's something that we could do in terms of community outreach to get feedback that's not expensive, like a focus group, that people be willing to give you, you know, feedback on these flyers before you send them out to organizations. And I'm sure with the many events that are happening in the summer that we could get a booth to get this working, get this going.
Okay.
Actually, I'm having a back to school distribution on August 8th, and I'm expecting to distribute 500 backpacks of school supplies. That'd be an excellent
place
to put these up and ask just for feedback on those. All the different ones that we've had.
Great.
I'd be happy to do that.
That would be wonderful. Does anybody else have an opportunity like that we might be able to piggyback on? Yeah.
We are giving away backpacks. Also, we are also having a concert at 11/7th, a Red Bone concert.
August 7th?
September 7th.
Awesome, even better.
Yeah, that's a little bit more breathing room anyway. Yeah.
The process to capture the feedback, some type of form or something. I don't know if it's something that you can just click online or whatever. You have a computer there or a sheet or something.
So we're out in the field quite a bit and could do some testing. I think what we want to be careful of is that where we go tends to be certain categories of people, I'd say. And so if we only have a couple of touch points, then we'll have a pretty biased sample of feedback. Be like the people that went to that event. And that's okay as long as we're aware of that. And don't generalize that to the whole population.
Yeah, we are getting people from Aurora, North Glen, Brighton, so we're getting them from everywhere because we were allowed to give more this year. So we've already got 400 signed up, so they're coming from every county.
Great.
So
Okay.
I could probably find a way to track that.
So if we broaden out though, your touch points
Less about
and these touch points.
counties and more about like rural versus urban, or Latinx versus Anglo, or African American community, or whatever it is. Different events tend to be attended by higher portions of those different populations. And so since part of our desire here is to have messages that reflect what resonates with people in different sort of life situations and different backgrounds, we just need to be aware of where we're collecting that data, what that population actually looks like.
That could be included on feedback form. The event.
Yeah.
The last City Park Jazz is August 4th. That might be too soon, but I think that could be a good place.
Nobody's organization is going to have anything there. Are they already?
There's only like 3 or 4 booths. There's not a lot of.
Okay, stop. I've never been to
Not a
City
lot of
Park
stuff.
Jazz.
Yeah.
I hate to admit, but it's true.
So for like SNAP outreach, we find that a place to do SNAP outreach. It's kind of public.
Yeah.
People aren't really in
Signing up for SNAP. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking more the focus group or the having people respond to materials might be if you had some sort of like collateral that you're giving away or something. But getting that prepared for us is more challenging.
All right, well, I'll at least try to meet the deadlines that this group has laid out in terms of specifically your August 8th one. That's the fastest coming one, in terms of at least getting something for you to test a little bit for us that you can give us feedback with. And respecting the fact that this is, again, my focus in this particular area has been, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Right. Let's get whatever feedback we can, and then we'll put it in the context of where it came from and not let it skew everything, but certainly probably getting some feedback is better than not.
Can we ask on the phone if anybody in more rural locations has ideas around events or things that you've got going on this summer?
I want to go really fast.
That one is very fast, yeah.
I certainly could try to get something, Laquita, for you if you're willing to do it. It might not be perfect, but it would at least have the messages on it, and you could maybe see how people felt about it. We probably can't get it translated and laid out by then, but
just talking about destination health this weekend.
Yeah. Is that okay for you, Laquita? She's talking. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yes, that would be great. I'm actually the lead for our learning zone, so if you can get something for me, I would be more than happy to get our guest input.
Great. I will do that. Yes, I will do that.
It doesn't have to be perfect either, because we're trying to just get feedback.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I think as long as we have like this is not for distribution, this is for feedback.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. Laquita, I'll get you something and we'll figure out how to get it, printed for you so that you don't have to battle with that. I'm sure you got a lot of other things going on.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure. All right. I want to take a few minutes to talk about resources that we need. Can you go to the next slide? So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the actual assets we're going to build out. I know at the last meeting we did a little bit of brainstorming around some non-traditional ones, and I think I want to acknowledge that we may not have the budget to do grocery bags and clipboards and all the other great ideas that we had. So my head's going more toward the more traditional sorts of assets that we know people use, or that we think people use. And I have started listing some here, but I want to make sure that they are correct with you all, or at least you think they're roughly in the ballpark. I would also want to build in review of what assets we built when we're talking to our organizations who are downloading these, and say, like, did you find that there was something else you needed that you're not getting? So again, making it part of the iterative process so that we can add on as we move forward. You know, obviously social media posts are cheap, so and all the digital stuff is we can do that easily and just create that ourselves. But Some of these other ones require a little bit more investment. Does this list seem right to you? Posters, flyers that can be handed out, a rack card or a postcard, or do we need both? Is it better to just do a postcard and not a flyer? I mean, for those of you who are working in the field, your organizations are in the field a lot, is there one that's better than the other, or should we do both and then folks can have options? Yes.
So we might be able to do a postcard mailing for you all to our membership.
Great.
And we may even be able to target the rural areas if that's what you would want.
That would be great.
That'd be amazing.
Great.
So definitely postcards.
Yes, postcards, we make some postcards. Yeah.
And is the digital landing page something that we might want to talk about on that call if we're going to arrange a call with the SNAP outreach partners, just for content's sake of whether or not that's needed and then what kind of content would be on there?
Yeah. And we have obviously on the Blueprint website, we can put anything on there we want to put on there, but the question is there value in driving this kind of traffic to the Blueprint website, since that website wasn't ever intended to provide a portal for people to enroll in SNAP, right? You know, I think it certainly makes a logical home for all these assets for people to go and download them, but I don't know that we want to be driving people to our website.
The more navigation they have to do, the higher chance you have of losing people.
Right. Agreed. So maybe that's not a good one for this first round, but again, I think you're right. Maybe that the smaller group that we're going to convene just on the phone to talk about exactly how we want to do this. Where are we sending the piece? Let's add that to our agenda to talk about, which is with a social media post, we can just let people drive traffic wherever they want to and just use the posts if they're useful to them. Is there anything else for this? Oh yeah, maybe door hangers.
Guido likes postcards because they're easier to hand out and people can also put them on their fridges.
That's true.
Yeah. I like refrigerator magnets for that reason. They're not crazy expensive to get printed either, but because I have a lot of refrigerator magnets for a lot of things that
What about like bookmarks? That's kind of like a postcard, but I'm trying to think of things that people would use, or like grocery lists, and I don't know. I'm just trying.
Well, that's interesting because they talked about like students as a target population
Yeah.
earlier, so thinking of materials that they might be more likely to use.
Potato chip bag.
Yeah, that's what we had. I don't know how expensive those are, but I just.
potato chip bag clips.
Yeah.
I don't know either. Honestly, I've never priced them, but I think my hesitance is that I don't know how to get much on there at all.
What's the content look like?
If we look at the minutes from the last meeting, we had a list of assets that were
right
on
Is there anything in there that you all want to add to this list? And again, I don't want to ask you to sit and brainstorm a million different things, and then I come back and say, guess what? We can't do any of those. So I want to maybe get I guess I'd like to start with a really solid list that we think is a good set to work with, and then as we iterate this with our organizations that are using the content, we can certainly try to add to this list things that people really are finding they need, or that could be.
There's a pocket guide. That's one suggestion.
Quick meals, yeah, it's suggested when considering folks experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity, they've had success with pocket guides or small things that people keep in their wallets.
Okay. I think we do design it as a magnet, depending on the size. If it can be like twice the size of a whole, like a business card that can be folded in half or something like that, you could use that same design and turn it into a pocket guide as well as a magnet.
I'm thinking about what you're saying. I think I understand what you mean.
So in terms of ways that in a wallet, we found success with things that are business card size.
Okay.
But obviously you can't fit a ton of information on a business card. But if it was double, then you just fold it in half.
Yep.
That could be a pocket guide, and then the magnet could be like that full size.
Yeah.
So you'd have like one design.
That could do both. Yep. Okay.
I really love the social media post idea and like just maybe focusing on the 3 top social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And just creating a series of content that can be, you know, cycled through with really engaging pictures and just a quick call to action or message. I think that would be fantastic, and even making it kind of seasonal.
Yeah.
Similar to a campaign, but maybe campaign light.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Is this good for now? All right. Okay, so one other area that we wanted to talk, well, 2 other areas that I want to cover with you all is sort of the distribution piece. And I wanted to bring up the WIC materials because I don't want to lose track of those. I know we already have a good set for CDPHE that has some good stuff on them. And I know that the area that we found that was missing was those families who are dual eligible for WIC and SNAP. We don't have any content for that at this point. But I didn't want to lose WIC. I will say that we need to continue our conversation with CDPHE on the WIC materials, because right now those are available on a password protected website. They share that password protected website with only their WIC clinics and only 4 times a year, because that site lets you go on and say, I need 100 of these posters, and then they'll print them and send them to you. So there's a cost involved. And unfortunately, Abby, well, fortunately for her, she's on vacation, but Abby couldn't be here today from CDPHE, but I did check in with her about this before we came together today so that I would know what the parameters were. She's willing to work with the program to see how we might be able to share those resources or get more people access to the WIC site to get those resources, but obviously we can't create a run on the market and then break their budget for the whole year. So we'll need to try to figure out how to get our arms around the best way to do that. I think they are interested in keeping the materials on the site so that they have a sense of what's getting used, just like we're trying to talk about metrics as well. So I don't think that just sort of randomly downloading stuff and just sharing it all over the world is going to work for us, but I think we can work something out with them.
Yeah, I'm coming from the WIC world and did a lot of outreach with trying to get those materials, and I can say doing outreach, I see there might be some really great potential in just maybe creating one of these that's dual, because all the ones that CDPHE uses are actually from MWA, and they are somewhat modifiable, but not really. They're not specific to Colorado. They're not specific to our regions. So I think we might have a good opportunity to collaborate with WIC and kind of to touch on these dual enrollments. Unless they've changed the materials, I mean, all the NWA ones that CDPHE uses they're just WIC specific. Yes. And they're difficult to modify unless you have, because they are those PDF ones that unless you have the Adobe that you're able to change it, I had a very tough time adapting them to be able to use them.
So they've changed the website that they're utilizing to order materials so that they are more modifiable. Did you use that and still had difficulty with it?
I had difficulty even getting access to do that. Okay. Because like you were mentioning, like one person is able to have the ability to download it, and then it just wasn't easy. So we had a tough time with that.
Okay. I'm happy to make another poster we've been talking about that dual eligible, and since we all feel relatively comfortable with the idea that if you're eligible for one, you're probably eligible for the other, I think that could work, and I'm happy to do that. And then again, I hate to lose all of those resources because there's so many of them there, and I hear what you're saying about the challenges with it, but with this group's consent, I'd like to at least continue to have a conversation with Abby about how we might be able to work that out, because they're all just sitting there. And there's more resource in there in like 6 or 7 different languages, and it's really a lot of content there. So I'll keep talking with her about that and maybe come back to this group with some solutions that she and I can work up that respect their budgets and also try to get them out in the world. But meanwhile, I will create a poster that is dual eligible for you all to give me some feedback on. Other ideas about how we can push out these new assets when we get to them. In terms of just creating some channels. Obviously, the Blueprint website can be home to every single one of these, and everyone can download them, and we will create just a bit of a tell us who you are before you get them, so that we'll know what's happening on the back end. But are there other, what other ways do you think we can disseminate this material? Because I don't, you know, when we put them everywhere, then we lose some control of knowing who's using them and how they're using them. And so then the question becomes, do we want to put emphasis on knowing that, or do we want to put emphasis on just pushing these out as widely as we can and letting people use them in whatever way makes sense for their organization? Which of course blows up our metrics, but.
I think Snap Outreach Partners are a good way to do some of this. And, if the 4 that are partnering with the state agree to download them from a central location, we can track at least what we're doing and what our subrecipients are doing, which would probably be a big portion of what's downloaded.
Okay.
We can send these out. I mean, they'll be posted on the Blueprint website, but also putting them in the newsletter that people can go in and sign up and use them however they'd like to. I mean, I think we'll still be able to track organizations who are downloading them that way.
Okay. And I can create newsletter content drop-ins for anybody as well, and we can put them
That's a good idea.
somewhere that anybody could just swipe it off the website and stuff it in their newsletter and send it out easily.
One of the challenges I'm thinking with the downloads is if you download it once and print it 10 times, that's a little bit different than if you download it once and print it 1,000 times. And so maybe there's nothing we can do about that, but at least with the subrecipients, we could ask to track that and have everybody kind of report back, that type of thing.
And if we ask them for their contact on the front end, we could also then try to survey them at some point in the future that we determine is enough time for us to get a sense of how people use things, right? So we could at least do a survey. I know not everybody fills out surveys, but we might be able to get a little bit of data back from that. Did you print it 10 times or 1,000 times? And you know, that sort of piece. Are there other?
So Kelly mentioned that through their work, I believe with the earned income tax credit, that they also have that challenge. So on their online store, they ask how many people they think they'll reach with that single download.
That's a good idea.
Thank you, Kelly. We want individual counties having these in county offices, and is there a role working through?
I will check with Andrew Poole and Terry, but I think that's definitely an avenue.
What about the big grocery chains?
That's
Is that another opportunity?
I was thinking for sure.
Just trying to think of other places or schools, doctors'
Food banks?
offices.
What about-
Yeah, I mean, food banks, a lot of places. Family resource centers.
Oh, yeah, look, yeah.
Ellie, is there any thinking you have just off the cuff about the pantries? Your line
I mean, I think we could definitely distribute it through the Colorado Food Pantry Network.
Okay.
So, I mean, I see a lot of things, like you've already mentioned, subrecipients for the Colorado Food Pantry Network through, you know, medical providers, like you said, working with, you know, we have a lot of the family resource centers as subrecipients, so they'd be getting it that way as well. And we have some connections with like the Save-A-Lot stores, so we could always see if they'd be willing to put it up. Less so with like King Supers, but I'm sure.
We just have a good relationship with King Supers, I don't know. Contact isn't there anymore, but we like figured that out.
WIC does all their authorization of stores at the state level, so they have like a retailer newsletter that they send out, so they can put it in there as well.
Great.
Do we think there's a barrier to sending electronically and asking them to print, or is that reasonable?
So I would say
You said for organizations? I don't think it's a barrier.
Okay,
I don't think they have a budget. Now, for me as an individual, if you wanted me to print out all of it.
Would we also want to print some nice copies and have them available to distribute and say, please put this out there?
I think we could do like a little bit of, I think if we made the materials available and then said, if you need support printing, please contact
That's a good
me or
idea.
somebody in the
That's a good
Blueprint
idea.
office, and we can kind of look at that on a case-by-case basis depending on.
So I'd imagine a mass run on printing would be more cost effective than everyone do. That's probably true. Yeah.
Although the shipping component of that sometimes makes it.
That's true
Yeah,
too.
expensive. Think about it.
Amanda Mercer on the phone said that they could help distribute to schools, but for some of their schools, particularly in rural areas, they may not have funding to print.
Gosh, at my school, they don't, we've gone down to like, you're not allowed to print any flyers for the Monday folders anymore because they don't use paper or we're not having money or something. So
This is true, yeah.
I don't think it's just a rural problem.
Yeah,
that's what it's rural.
I think making that option available, and we'll see how many people start to kind of contact us and whether or not mass printing makes sense. We can adjust as needed.
So maybe when we get their contact information and their organization information and how many people they think they're going to reach, we could ask the question, do you think you'll need help printing? And that could send an email to me at the Blueprint, and then we can evaluate that.
I don't know that I would make it that upfront. I would
Okay.
put it like on the page of resources where they can download them. You can say you can download or request printing assistance or something.
Okay.
But to have that as like the first thing
Thing
they
they see
see,
is not
everybody's
good.
gonna say, yeah, of course.
Okay.
But are you not going to do a mass printing anyway? And you're gonna have something stop?
Well, that's a question. We don't
That's
know if we have a
good.
budget right now.
Oh, okay,
So,
gotcha.
yeah. That's why it's like, what's the need versus, because then you have to go about finding it.
What?
Right, and it's
Oh,
the
I
print,
think
the
this
mass
is-
printing is the easy part, it's the mailing that gets
the
expensive.
distribution.
It's the distribution that can get expensive, that's all. And we can, again, if we gauge the interest and need for that, then we can figure out a budget for it.
Kelly suggested.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they can definitely pick them up, yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a suggestion for, to not forget re-entry programs when it comes to this and have a way to inform them about what we're doing. Probably should have someone at the table for this. And maybe even a flyer for that, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's a good point. We do have 3 reentry programs at City VCUs. We have one off-site on 14th and Delaware too, so I'll definitely take this information back to them.
Okay.
They do, a lot of those people are asked if they want to apply for SNAP before they're eligible for parole.
Okay.
So a lot of that gets done in the prisons or the jails before they even come out. So.
Okay.
And along those lines too, a lot of churches have prison ministries, and to contact the churches to be able to distribute this information.
Going back to the schools, Kelly mentioned on the chat that a lot of districts do email Friday folders, so you can provide a link to a flyer request in there.
Oh, great.
That's brilliant. And it helps the environment. What about FQHCs and doctors? I know like since someone was on from Centura previously, and there was the idea of like they trust their doctors a lot more. So maybe also having it as something that, especially when groups are doing social determinant of health screenings, I mean, they're turning them directly to Hunger Free. I know Centura is, but as like here's a postcard you can take, or I don't know.
Yes.
There's a Food is Medicine collaborative, so we can send it out through that group.
Great. All right. Anything else in the distribution pipeline?
Were libraries listed?
No, that's a good idea.
Libraries, recreation centers.
Parks and Rec is a good one.
All right. We will, we'll come back to the group with this laundry list of places we can do outreach through, and where we have holes, we'll come back and ask for your help. Where we can figure it out ourselves, we will do it, but we'll probably be back begging for help for some of these networks. There's, even though I know we're all looking at the opportunity to get out of here a little bit early, there is one other area that I failed to talk about previously that we do need to discuss, and that's translation. The intention is that all of this will be translated into Spanish. Then beyond that, we don't know what languages to go to, in all candor. right? We have hundreds spoken, we know that, but I'd like to be realistic about how much translation we can get done. We do have a set number of languages that WIC is already translated into. We could just follow WIC's lead and try to do those languages as the next set that we translate into, and then during the iterative process, try to hear feedback that we need it in some other language that we don't have it in, or we can do something different. I don't have any great data to provide you all that these are the 4 languages we absolutely need.
Do you know what the first top 5 are for WIC?
No.
I was just looking it up.
Because at Servicios, we definitely are seeing a lot more Vietnamese, and fortunately, I have to use my phone to call an interpreter for Arabic as well.
So we have, for WIC, there's Spanish, Somali, Burmese, Nepali, and Arabic.
You said Burmese.
Spanish, Somali.
Yep.
Burmese.
Yep.
Nepali.
Yep.
And Arabic.
I would say we're also seeing Vietnamese and Arabic.
Yeah.
I mean, the other ones as well, but I think those two.
Okay.
I do that. We have a lot of Vietnamese that are accessing food pantries now. So.
Okay. So if we try to concentrate on that list and do our best to get all of those done. Oh, sorry. Okay.
School districts.
Yeah, start with the consent decree language that school districts use. There are 9. Okay. We can certainly.
Great. I guess just a question on like access when you're talking about enrollment assistance, wherever we're directing people, will they be able to get those resources in any of those languages, or are we just talking English and Spanish? Because I also think you can make it accessible and then they're going to call a phone number and it's like, we can't help you, we don't understand what you're saying. I want to be cautious of that.
Right, the benefits launch we will not have. What is the?
Yeah, so as of right now, just English. However, where they're directed to, if they wanted to call our hotline, we do offer all languages.
So that's common, you'll
There's
see a
that.
translation line for services, but if there may be the chance that they call in and we don't have that available, the translation line available, or that's not a practice, then we encourage them going to the counties where they can get the services in their language through the translation.
So we may want to change the bullet points for the different languages of like where
it's
to link
possible.
them to.
Yeah, possible.
It's hard to, well,
Yeah.
because we're making them editable, so ostensibly people could change them on the ground there, but they would have to do that.
And translate it.
And then translate it and then print it.
And I know a lot of people won't go to the counties for that.
For what?
Translation, if we don't have anybody there. Just try to get on the phone. You know who does that is the Humane Society. Whenever I need a translator, I call them and they have so many translators. And they just translate. I just fell into that hole.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll our Cooking Matter staff could disseminate info, farmers market, oh, sorry.
Awesome.
Great, that sounds wonderful, thank you. So what if I propose this to you all? We're gonna translate immediately from English to Spanish, and then we're gonna start working our way through this list that WIC is translated into, as well as figure out what's in the consent decree for schools, the 9 languages there that have been brought up, and then we'll, whatever's in that 9 that's not in the ones that we've already done, we'll start adding those as we can. Is that okay? Yes.
There's also, so if we're gonna translate the text, I think it'd be great to also have visual representation of the community that we're trying to, just to have, like, when you're reading that, you wanna see someone reflecting yourself.
Yes, yes. Robust.
There's someone on the phone that had a comment.
No? Okay. Is there anything else we should discuss this morning?
I just want to mention really quickly that I hate meetings of any kind, of any source. This is the only meeting that 2 hours goes by, just like that. So thanks for that.
Great.
That's a meeting.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you all. This is really, I really appreciate you all engaging with us. I know this is a little bit unusual in terms of, usually these things start out with massive focus groups, and I know that we're kind of short-circuiting a few of the processes that you all might be used to, but I appreciate your engagement, and I promise you we're going to try to take every opportunity to get as much feedback as we can, make them as useful as we can, make them as iterative as we can within the parameters that we're working. So I really appreciate your help with this and your feedback. And so we will get out an email here toot sweet for those of you who want to engage with us in that sort of where are we sending people conversation. We'll send it out to the whole group. Everyone is welcome. But if that's not your area of expertise or you don't have time in your calendar for that, please don't feel obligated to jump on the phone with us, but we'll make it available to everybody because we want as much input as we can get. Okay? I think is that it? Does anybody else have any in the order?
Just going off of that, we have these surveys. If you guys don't mind taking 1 second just to fill them out, any feedback you have, positive or recommendations, just we want to keep, you're here. We have 18 minutes. If you take 2 of them to fill this out, we would really appreciate it. So, and if anyone on the phone, last time some people sent us some feedback from the meeting and it was super helpful. So any feedback you guys have, if you could share it with Kevin, that would be amazing. So thank you. And thank you for being so engaged on the phone as well. It's awesome. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
And there's more coffee here too, if anyone wants it.
Coffee, snacks, everything, and then restrooms are, when you go out this door, the first one on your right-hand side.